All right, so we have some interesting news here that I have to cover very briefly. This is going to jump into the beginning of the video. We have a response from all of the premiers based on the Trump tariffs, and then Trump actually responds to what Doug Ford said, responding to what Trump said about the tariffs. So this is a back and forth battle right now between the premiers and Trump, and it appears the premiers are not all on the same page when it comes to what they want to do to battle this. Let's take a listen.
Good morning, everyone.
For the second day in a row, Ontario Premier Doug Ford reiterated his threat to cut off energy supply to the U.S. in retaliation to Donald Trump's proposed tariffs.
You come and attack Ontario, you attack livelihoods of people of Ontario and Canadians. We're going to use every tool in our toolbox to defend Ontarians and Canadians across the border.
Trump responded to Ford's threat today, saying this.
Well, that's okay if he does that, that's fine. But the United States is subsidizing Canada. It's truly a subsidy, and we shouldn't have to do that.
And other provinces seem unwilling to withhold their energy from U.S. markets.
From the Alberta perspective, under no circumstances will Alberta agree to cut off oil and gas exports.
By the way, I won't threat Donald not to send electricity.
The disagreement between provinces goes even deeper. Last night, Premier Ford said he is convinced Canada will not escape U.S. tariffs. However, François Legault cited his meeting with Trump last week in Paris.
And he told me very clearly that we can avoid those tariffs if we do what needs to be done with the border.
It's very simple. It comes down to fixing the borders, not receiving the tariffs. It's a very simple thing to do. And instead, we are battling our neighbors head on over this tariff threat instead of just doing what is asked. A lot of criminal activity in and out of not just our border, but the border of Mexico as well. It's just a simple thing. Keep the border strong. Keep your country strong. Allow it to continue down this path, and absolute chaos will happen. We see all the people daily pouring into the United States from the southern border, and all they ask is to keep the borders strong and secure. If we can't do that, then we're going to get tariffed. We're going to get taxed. And stopping supply to the United States is only going to continue the snowball effect, which has already started. At least Alberta is half intelligent and is willing to play ball. We need to realize that Trudeau has absolutely annihilated us and our reputation as a country. And with Donald Trump at the head of the United States, he's not going to be playing any games with a pathetic, weak leader like Trudeau. And the premiers are an absolute joke to Trump. He's America first. He's made it clear time and time again. He wants America to be great again. And if that involves tariffing countries that are not going to support their border security, then yeah, that's what's going to happen. It's cut and dry. Very simple. To start us off, Poilievre demands Trudeau puts end to Canada Post strike. During question period, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre said that Canadians are suffering due to the postal strike and called on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to bring the union and Canada Post together to end the almost 4-week-old strike. This was 2 days ago. Poilievre demanded during question period that they bring an end to the strike. Yes, Canadians are suffering. Small businesses are suffering. There are a lot of other options, whether it's UPS, FedEx, DHL. Yes, they are probably a little bit more expensive. Some of them shipping internationally, whatever the case is. It also depends on the weight of the package and what you are shipping. But if you're a small business and you need to stay afloat, you're not just going to shut down for 4 weeks. You're most likely going to switch over to a different service, if I had to assume. Even Amazon, if you really needed to. Even Walmart has a similar to Amazon kind of online marketplace selling where you could sell things through Walmart. There's a lot of different ways you could sell things, Temu even, or all these different things. At the end of the day, this does affect people and it does suck, but you gotta adapt and overcome. And I believe, personally, if we got rid of Canada Post, we would save a lot of money, not just in taxpayer dollars, but through the government as well. I really only see a lot of Canada Post out in rural areas. I don't really see a lot I see maybe the odd UPS truck, but I don't see a lot of FedEx or DHL or anything. In the city, you have a ton of options. So I would say rural areas are more affected by the Canada Post strike. at the end of the day, when it comes to receiving things like, I don't know, tax forms or T4s or whatever, anything through the government, you're obviously going to need to get that through Canada Post. But a lot of that stuff is going away as well. A lot of people are just receiving their things through emails and electronically. So, I don't know, it seems like something we could possibly cut out altogether. Labour Minister asks Canada Industrial Relations Board to step into Canada Post contract dispute. McKinnon says he expects the mail service to return next week. Timu Dan Aykroyd trying to get Canada Post back in order here. Let's take a listen.
Canada Post and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers remain unable to reach an agreement. Canadians are rightly fed up. The federal mediator has now informed me that the negotiations between both parties are now, in fact, going in the wrong direction. Today I've used my powers under the Canada Labour Code. It is my view and the view of the FMCS that the parties are at an impasse. I have asked the Canada Industrial Relations Board, if they also determine that there is an impasse, to order Canada Post and all employees represented by CUPW to resume and continue their operations and duties, and to extend the terms of the existing collective agreements until May 22nd, 2025. I am making this decision to protect the interests of all Canadians. It is not a decision I take lightly, but in this situation, it is the right one.
So there you have it. Question period did happen today. It actually happens around 11 a.m. I found this little statement here by Kevin to be kind of interesting. So let's take a listen to Creepy Kevin.
In his questions and comments. But we'll move on to statements by members. Déclaration de député. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all know that foreign interference is a very serious issue in Canada. You can think in terms of extortion, murder, political interference, all through foreign interference. And it's interesting, now we know that the leadership convention in which the current leader of the Conservative Party was elected, that there is foreign interference with respect to that leadership. In fact, we had one of the Conservative candidates for the leadership that actually came before committee, Mr. Speaker, and virtually affirmed that foreign interference was, in fact, a part of the Conservative leadership convention. In fact, Madam Speaker, one of the current members of the Conservative Party, the member from Calgary, Nose Hill, is, in fact, someone that has been influenced by foreign interference.
So he brings up the MP from Calgary, Nose Hill. The only reason I'm playing this clip is because the other day I said, when they make these baseless accusations and claims within the House of Commons, they should be able to directly pinpoint whoever they claim it is. And now we have Kevin actually saying who it is. Calgary Nose Hill MP. Michelle Rempel Garner. That's what he's claiming, based on a committee that had happened. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. The whole reason I'm bringing up that clip is specifically because I said when they are making these claims, whether it's on foreign interference or a scandal or whoever or whatever it is, they should be able to directly pinpoint the MP, their name, their riding, or something, instead of just saying, well, there's a list of 11 people and we're not going to tell you a single one of these individuals. So that's the only reason I bring that up. Whether you believe Kevin or not is a completely different story. I take everything the Liberals say with half a grain of salt, and I would expect you to do the same as well.
Senator Husakos.
Senator Gold, with Canada's deficit now being rumored to be over $60 billion, far beyond the $40 billion guardrail promised by Minister Freeland, how do you justify the level of spending your government continues to engage in, including the GST tax trick that will only cost Canadians?
By the way, I just need to point out that Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Chrystia Freeland will be giving the exact statement of how bad our deficit is. So Monday will be a very big day.
In the long run, your government is playing loose and fast with nominal GDP growth, acting like it's a blank check to overspend in what only can be described as a lame duck attempt to hold on to power. Senator Gold, are you still, and Justin Trudeau, believe that budgets will balance themselves? And is fiscal discipline completely and simply off the table with this Trudeau government?
Senator Gold.
Well, Senator Housakos, once again, the premises to your question are simply incorrect. This government has never said that budgets will balance themselves. But this government,
in this economic climate, how committed to a balanced budget would you be right now? Would it worry you to go into deficit in this current climate to, as you say, put more people to work?
The commitment needs to be a commitment to grow the economy, and the budget will balance itself.
What this government has done and continues to commit to is to invest in the future of Canadians, in the future of this country. Let me, for example, remind you of the investment that this government has made through the Housing Accelerator Fund, a program that your leader has vowed to cut, even as it promises to substitute it partially with some other as yet to be elaborated plan. The City of Calgary will receive $228 million to support its initiatives in housing. Banff will receive more than money to support its action plan. There are City of Edmonton, the City of Burnaby, cities on Vancouver. We're talking about thousands and thousands of homes to be built through the investments that this government is making to solve real problems for Canadians. That costs money, and the government is focused on investing in Canadians, all the while doing so in a responsible, fiscal responsible manner.
Senator Gold, from your answer, you're living in a fantasy world. Prime Minister Trudeau's well-documented video, audio of having said budgets balance themselves. And now in a question about balancing a budget, you're talking about all the spending your government does. My God. Canada's...
Oh, he just absolutely annihilated him there. It's so true, though. Like, that statement is utterly ridiculous. The budget will balance itself. What? Come on. Come on. You can't seriously believe that.
Real GDP growth is the worst amongst G7 nations over the last 10 years. The worst. But you take nominal GDP growth and a snapshot of a time and place, you run around like chickens with your heads cut off like you're in great financial shape. So the question now is very simple. Is your government going to have an anchor in place in order to stop the sinking of a generation of Canadians down to the bottom of the ocean?
Senator Housakos.
The budget that this government
Housakos was on a rampage there.
Has produced, have the projections, as we all know, and that is why I answered as I did, Senator. And with respect, Canada remains in a solid financial position, and
Harper ran a deficit 9 years.
And thank you, Speaker. And this government will continue to do its best to help Canadians in this regard.
Senator Tolajan.
Thank you, Speaker. Senator Gold, my question is a follow-up to Senator Carringer asked you last week about an individual arrested in Toronto. He was caught on video attempting to carjack several vehicles, shooting at drivers. The Toronto Police Association says that at the time of his arrest, he was on probation, out on bail, and was facing multiple lifetime firearms ban prohibitions. In response to this incident, the Toronto Police Association recently asked, and I quote, "When will this federal government take accountability for the consequences of its weak bail policies?" Senator Gold, what is your response to this question from the police officers in Toronto?
Senator Gold.
Thank you. I have enormous respect for the work that police officers do, putting themselves in harm's way to protect Canadians and their families. The laws in the criminal code and the laws at governing bail are well established. They grant a certain degree of discretion to our independent judiciary, to prosecutors, and there is an entire process that involves both federal and provincial jurisdiction in this regard. It is simply not the case, despite Conservative Party talking points, that the federal government is responsible for the crimes, regrettably and horribly committed by those who managed to find themselves on the streets as a result of the application of the laws of this country.
Senator Tolajan.
Senator Gold, you told Senator Carringer last week, and I quote, "It's not legislation, nor the courts, nor the independent commissions that are to blame for all this," end of quote. Who is to blame then, Senator Gold? Police in Toronto say the federal government must take accountability. Why do you think they are wrong?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question. The federal government does take responsibility for matters within its jurisdiction. The criminal code and the approach that this government has taken to crime has struck a balance between the protection of Canadians and the respect for our constitutional rights and privileges. It is a partnership with law enforcement, a partnership with our courts, a partnership with our correctional sources, and we all have a job to do to keep Canadians safe.